I'm just hoping heading into our game that we'll be able to see the Walking Wake, not the Dragon Brood off the rip. That will be the Dragonite and Tornadus, Raging Bolt and Ogerpon on the opposing end.
Well, I'm happy to see this beautiful Raging Bolt here, and I'm really curious to find out what Eric has in the back here. It's sort of an interesting matchup with another two Pokemon here who are super Qian Pao bait, but there really aren't a lot of other Pokemon Eric's team that Qian Pao supports, so if he does have it, it looks like he does, when he gets it on the field and how he uses it's going to be an interesting challenge in this matchup, because it is very easy for that ability to backfire in this matchup.
I'm looking in this as well. There's a lot of ways that Miles can be threatening damage on this first turn. Of course, too, Thunderclap, you can't do that into a Dragonite if it wants to go for the E-Speed instead, so you have to be so careful with that, especially too if the Tornadus does go for a setup move like this Tailwind, it's going to be doing absolutely nothing. The move timer ticks down to see where the Terastallization is going to start things out.
Well, I like this. A very aggressive start to the game now with the Terastallization, looking to focus down perhaps this Tornadus and make it pay for perhaps getting that Tailwind off or prevent it from perhaps later in the game using Sunny Day.
Body Aspect, of course, special defense boost. Not anything that'll help it out maybe too well against the Dragonite, but hey, you will be able to power off a powerful Ivy Cudgel into the Tornado slot, bringing it right down low, but not taking a clean hit and Air Slash. So little damage thanks to that special defense boost, and now not hitting for super effective. That is going to be a power Draco Meteor into the Dragonite, a clean one-hit KO.
That's just an overwhelming first turn there, where just a piddly Air Slash, no longer super effective against this Ogerpon, and then having its damage reduced by the special defense boost after the Terastallization. For that, you lose an entire Pokemon and most of another, and Heatran coming out here doesn't seem like the best solution to the situation, where certainly at least avoiding or unless there's any Terastallization of its own, at least currently weak to this Ogerpon attack. Raging Bolt might have its special attack reduced, but I think could easily finish off this 6% of Tornadus' health. This is looking bad fast.
Oh, 100%. I would have loved to see a Tailwind on that first turn if you are going to be clicking anything other than Extreme Speed with that Dragonite to make sure you can be trying to fire off and attack over onto the other end. That outrage could have been so impactful, but it's all said and gone. Is Terastallization coming out on Miles' end? It will be that Heatran, of course, into the Grass type. You want to make sure you're not going to be targeted down by a powerful Ivy Cudgel into that spot, and this way you can make sure it is a resisted hit.
At least Heatran's looking pretty safe now, where resist most of the attack from these Pokemon in the field. Tailwind comes up, so maybe it's a turn later than we were expecting it, but perhaps it'll pay dividends later in the game.
Super effective hit into the Raging Bolt, but of course the Assault Vest does Assault Vest and critical hits, and that's just going to be bringing it just down below half as Ivy Cudgel now targeting into the Heatran. Terastallization, it's not going to be doing much damage at all, but Snarl not going to be picking off the Tornadus, which may be fine because then now you don't get a free swap over on Miles' end, and that is going to be lowering the special attack of that Heatran.
Yeah, I think I love that Snarl not picking up the knockout if I'm Eric, right? Where Tornadus is not super threatening offensively, potentially able to use a Sunny Day for that, which I think would be pretty decent value, right? But otherwise, it's now reduced special attack. Air Slash is the best thing it's threatening. I don't think you're too upset about that. And the Terastallization now committed. It's great for Heatran against the Pokemon who are immediately on the field, but kind of where do you go with this, right? How do you win the game from here?
And now you can't even target a Earth Power on to that Raging Bolt thanks to the Follow Me coming out from the Ogerpon. Sunny Day, it is going to be also boosting the Raging Bolt over on the other end. Special defense boost, funny enough. Now Earth Power into the Ogerpon. Considering its -1 special attack and the increased special defense, it's not much. Snarl will finally get that final KO over onto the Tornadus, but the Heatran, it's just getting lower and lower. Now Miles is down to his final 2 Pokemon. No opportunities for a switch to reset this Heatran.
Yeah, this is scary if you're Miles now, right? Where to reveal your final Pokemon, you haven't seen either of Eric's in the back. And unless, Walking Wake's going to come out here, excited to see it, but, it's going to have a lot of work to do here, right? Where it has to deal with this opposing Ogerpon, which is going to make it difficult to do too much with its Water-type attacks, and Raging Bolt's still sitting there threatening Snarls.
The thing with the Walking Wake is a Draco Meteor into that Ogerpon can actually threaten a lot of damage, considering you have the Photosynthesis and you have that Life Orb. But then you are going to be sticking with that -2 special attack for the rest of the game. And if the Raging Bolt is consistently setting off these Snarls, it's a Walking Wake that, even though it's set up in the best position you can put it in with that Tailwind and that Sunny Day respectively, it's still in a really bad position to succeed this time around. And Ogerpon with a Spiky Shield will stay safe past this turn.
No, it blocks the Draco Meteor too. Miles is thinking just what you were, but that spiky shield is perfect to slow that down.
And Earth Power into the Raging Bolt between the 2 special attack drops and that Assault Vest doing nothing. And Snarl now is going to be lowering that special attack of that Walking Wake as well. It's already a Pokemon that needs that little bit of help, and these Snarls are not going to be helping whatsoever.
Yeah, in a weird way, it feels like Raging Bolt's kind of dominating this game. We're just like sitting there, hanging out, snarling. But that's 3 levels of reduced special attack on Heatran. If Walking Wake successfully uses Draco Meteor, that'll be 3 levels of reduced special attack there as well. This point, it's kind of feeling like no matter what's in the back on Eric's side, Heatran and Walking Wake are going to be so worn down by the time they get to them that it's not going to matter.
Oh, and that's exactly the problem, right? This is where we'll get to see that Follow Me coming out from the Ogerpon and kind of pinned into the Draco Meteor to try and be doing anything to it. We'll get to see that once again. And with that special attack drop from that previous Snarl, not even enough to be picking up the KO at this point. Now at -3, Earth Power still not even enough to be picking up this KO. And Draco Meteor in return, that is going to be so much more damage coming out from this Raging Bolt.
Oh no, Raging Bolt really showing off against its fellow Paradox Pokemon here, picking up another knockout, that Draco Meteor. And as Heatran's trying its best, but its special attack is just so low now.
This poor Heatran, and now, I mean, at this point, you just got to start thinking about where you're going to be taking this for Game 2. Not even going to lie about that one. And it's interesting because a couple of the pieces that Mile has on his team can also be setting up Eric. So we get to see that Sunny Day in the Photosynthesis boost, and it's just a really tough situation. And even if you do have Pokemon that aren't going to be immediately threatened by damage, they are threatened in different ways, like we get to see with that Snarl. So you have to think about a different win con kind of going on into the match.
He's kind of an awkward ending here in the meantime, where I think I guess I was assuming on Miles' side, he's probably just trying to pick up a knockout so that he can figure out what other Pokemon Eric brought and get a little information. But I was thinking you'd probably want to target Ogerpon and try to pick up that knockout with it only being at 15 hit points, where you need a critical hit to finish off Raging Bolt at this point, probably.
Yeah, it's you're doing Pebbles for damage, and even if you're getting Pebbles in return, it's still stacking up a little bit more. Maybe we can see the crit so Miles can have a little bit more information in that next game. He certainly has a couple of turns to try and go for that, considering how little damage is done in return. 3 HP on the Ogerpon, though. You're not getting any more information this turn around, buddy.
You waited 1 turn too many for Ogerpon surviving again. I guess the good news for Miles is that only 1 more Snarl, and then his special attack can't go any lower.
That's true. Then you cannot actually do any less damage than you're already doing. And hey, do we think a Heat Wave can be picking up a 3 HP Ogerpon at this point? You could go for the attempt at the double.
It scares me that the answer could be no.
Well, at this point, just neither Ivy Cudgel. I've seen this turn before. We're gonna get a little bit more damage. Snarl won't pick it up, and here's finally that last opportunity for Miles just to take a little bit more information into the next game. Finally, congratulations, Heatran, you got this KO.
I feel like Heatran really earned that one,
Honestly.
It was sent out in a difficult situation. It fought hard. It's on the board, not a 4-0.
He grinded through everything ahead of him, right? This poor Heatran, for better or for worse, has sat here, just been snarled, and has never given up. And honestly, I think that's really inspirational.
Yeah, I think we can all learn something from this Heatran. That's what you have to do. It's a Pokemon from yesteryear trying to fight today. It's an uphill struggle for it, but it did its best.
Yeah, and I think it's about to be put to rest now with the Chiampao over on the opposing end. This is going to be something that does actually threaten some damage with this Ice Spinner. And we can finally see Battlecat. You got your information. You have a little bit more to try and piece together this game plan. And back to the drawing board for this Walking Wake.
So things get a little bit off the rails there. I think the thing that I would go back to is really just that first turn at the game, right? Where, Eric picked up a knockout and almost all of another Pokemon for very little in return. Like, he committed his Terrestrialization is really the only meaningful resource that he gave up. You can't lose turn 1 by like 160% of a Pokemon's health bar and expect to win a game.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see an adjustment going on for it, because I don't think Dragonite was poorly posed in that battle. It was just not put in the right situation, considering we didn't get to see the Tailwind. Miles is the only one on these 2 teams that has some sort of speed control, both both trainers, of course, have access to priority, but this Dragonite, it doesn't necessarily get threatened by some of the priority over onto the other end. So in that case, why not be setting up to go for that speed? Because something like a really powerful Outrage can do so much. We got to see that both the Raging Bolt and the Ogerpon kind of just got to sit there. They will not be able to sit there for long if you're throwing out a Choice Band Outrage their way.
Yeah, I think one thing with Miles' team that's really important, like there's so many special attackers in this team, right? It's really just Dragonite and Rillaboom who aren't super reliant on their special attacks. So there's an important lose con there, right? If you're just going to get trapped with Raging Bolt like that and getting snarled down, there's a lot of ways for Eric to kind of switch around and just stall out the game. I think that Tailwind turn 1 makes a huge difference there, right? Where maybe you're a little concerned about like a Flutter Mane switch into an Outrage, but even that would only be a 50-50, right?
Yeah.
I think otherwise, Tailwind Outrage there, worst case scenario, you're trading 1 for 1. And if you get the Outrage into the Raging Bolt that first turn, I mean, that game's completely different, right? I think you just have to play a little bit more proactively.
Well, even if you are scared of something like a Flutter swap into an Outrage, you do still have something like Ice Spinner, which can actually still be threatening some damage, especially since you are that Choice Band. So I feel like anything is just better than not being able to fire off an attack at this point. You even have Earthquake on your side, so that is something that could actually deal some significant damage to the Raging Bolt, considering you are going to be attacking on that physical end of things. So I feel like if you do give an opportunity for this Dragonite, I do think it's actually a Pokemon that can really pop off in this battle, and I'd really like to see that game too.
Yeah, I think I would too. I think the other thing for me is like, I would either like to see it played much more aggressively at the beginning of the game, or like maybe you bring it in the back or something. Mm-hmm. I think it's just so important in this matchup to like continue to threaten some amount of physical damage that giving it up early makes the game really complicated.
All right, well, heading into game 2, we will see an adjustment. The Tornadoes nowhere to be seen. New best friend Flutter Mane by side, whereas on the opposing end, it will be the Incineroar to start things off.
I think this is a better lead for both sides in some ways, right? Where the combination of Incineroar and Roaring Bolt, normally pretty scary, kind of bad actually in this particular situation, right? You can't fake out Flutter Mane unless it terastallizes, and you actually can't fake out Dragonite either because of the inner focus ability. So this time, a lot more damage being threatened the other direction, where Raging Bolt likely to be too spooked to try and pull off what it did that first game, but there is no Tailwind option, so it could certainly try, and I doubt that with it getting that special defense boost from Photosynthesis last game, it seems like it could probably pretty easily survive an attack from Flutter Mane.
Yeah, but this Dragonite doesn't necessarily need to go for something like a slower move when it does have that extreme speed as well. That could be. So you could get the extreme speed and a Flutter Mane to be dealing some damage. But Terastallization, that'll be coming out from Eric into Terra Electric. I feel like this is always so goofy when you get to see this on a Raging Bolt, but a way to be threatening a little bit more damage. Not the only one, though. Terastallization coming out over on Miles. And if we were worried about taking a super effective hit from a Dragon move, we no longer have to. Into that Terra Normal.
Yeah, both players realizing maybe the volatility of the first turn of the first game wasn't ideal for them and playing more conservatively. Takes that Moonblast so well there, no longer weak to it, and wow, what a sturdy Pokemon.
What a champ, and firing off a Thunderbolt now into the Dragonite. It is going to be taking the hit to just its Earth health. Earthquake, it'll be targeting everything on the field, including your own Flutter Mane. That is going to be a 1 HP survival over on the Raging Bolt, and Incineroar, sure, it has been damaged, but it does get out alive.
Yeah, that was a huge Earthquake, though. The 1 hit point survival there from the world's friendliest street lamp. Raging Bolt just barely able to survive after that Terastallization, reducing the damage to the Moonblast, but not from the Earthquake.
And where things get tricky on this next turn, too, is you are Choice Band. So you cannot go for an extreme speed, and if you even get the opportunity to attack, whatever Pokemon is by your side is not going to be faring so well. So that's definitely a tricky situation, and having done so much damage to your Flutter Mane, it's not safe in front of this Champ Power Raging Bolt, which it could take one of those priority attacks. Now it can't.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a fun turn, right? Because I think there's a pin in theory here with both Thunderclap and Sucker Punch picking up knockouts on these two Pokemon. So it seems unlikely that either side is just going to play that out, right? It's a little too obvious. So like, well, who do you think you could get away with attacking if you're Miles, if anyone? And then, yeah, I mean, can you switch safely? Is Eric going to try to call the switches? There's a lot of... this could be neither of them do it.
We're just going for it. Dazzling Gleam, that is going to be picking up that final KO on to the Raging Bolt here. No priority in sight to try and take care of that Flutter Mane. And now Qianpao, they will be able to fire off an Ice Spinner. It can take down that Flutter Mane, but now since it has been damaged, this Dragonite can take off the final KO. This is not how I expected this one to turn out.
Not at all, yeah. The invisible Farigiraf here helping out, stopping all the priority moves, and 3 Pokemon go down that turn.
Absolutely incredible. And now that is Eric down to his final 2 Pokemon, Incineroar, as well as that Wellspring Ogerpon that was able to do so much in that first game. But wow, this Dragonite's definitely been doing so much. And if there's the Tornadus in the back here at this point too, this is the opportunity. You can go for the Tailwind, and you won't even damage your own partner Pokemon this time.
Finally, an opportunity to avoid hurting his friends. So yeah, this kind of creates a scary situation here where that Tornadus does have the covert cloak item in order to stop the flinch from Fake Out. So I believe there's no way to avoid a Tailwind Earthquake combination picking up this Incineroar, and then there's just one Pokemon left to deal with.
Well, that's exactly it. And hey, the Earthquake, that'll be an easy pickup onto the Incineroar at that point. And at that point, with Terastallization already spent, I'm assuming that the Wellspring Ogerpon can be dealt with. A little bit of chip onto that. I mean, if you're going to be taken down at the end of the turn anyways, even if you do not get anything else other than chip, it is better than nothing, because this Incineroar is going down. Just a little bit of damage onto this Ogerpon here, but it's the only final Pokemon remaining now on Eric's end of the field.
And Dragonite not content just with ignoring those Intimidates, had to get the BM critical hit to finish it off.
Oh, 100%. Ivy Cudgel now into the Tornadus. Even with that little bit of chip from the Fake Out, not enough to be picking up that KO, and now you can double target into this. Of course, Air Slash just a little bit more accurate than that Bleak Wind Storm. And no Snarls. You can do a lot of damage here.
Yeah, Dragonite wisely perhaps getting out of here to avoid that lock-in. And it's Walking Wake once again. We might get to see it pick up a dub.
Let's go. Air Slash. It's going to be bringing the Ogerpon way down low. And the flinch on top of that. I think this was pretty done anyways. Eric not willing to give Walking Wake that KO on stream deserves. Decides to throw in the towel. We'll be going to a Game 3. I love how different these 2 games panned out.
Well, that was a lot of fun, right? Where, and that turn where both Sucker Punch and Thunderclap could have gone off and then neither did. It was absolutely game-changing. Miles makes a very difficult but fantastic read there where I think Eric just expecting him to make a very different move than what he made, and Miles took full advantage.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because those turns are always so difficult to be planning out, because all of a sudden, if you do go for these priority moves that are contingent on your opponent readying up an attacking move and they do a swap, all of a sudden you could be finding yourself on the back foot. But all of a sudden, if you start overthinking, then it can also become difficult. So Miles just going for the I'm just going for it play. It just works out so well. And I feel like when you are in those situations, sometimes it's kind of what you have to do is, hey, sometimes you just click the buttons that if it works out is going to put you a winning position. Yeah,
I kind of love how we played the game. Yeah, we've been talking of Walking Wake, but I felt like Miles had the true spirit of Walking Wake the way he played that game too, where he's just so offensive and reckless the whole way through, but he was able to pull it off, right? Where, I think it's really tough game 2, I think, to recover from if you're Eric, where even though I think it, you're going to look back, he easily could have won that game. And sure, but I think because of that, it'd be easy to tilt here where, wow, I can't believe I let that one slip away. I think it's important for him to, take a few seconds, all right, that was a little silly, it's Pokemon, strange games occur, and just play game 3 like it was game 2, I think.
Well, I think even on Miles' end too, because obviously looking out from Eric's end, there is a difference, like in that priority turn where you could have been closing out or making things a lot better in your advantage. But even when you're looking at Miles' end, that turn where it was the Earthquake that so heavily damaged his Fluttermane to even put him in that position, he actually didn't pick up single KO on that turn. I'm assuming that he thought he would have gotten that Raging Bolt. He was off by 1 HP. Maybe if the turn plays out again, he will get that KO the next time. But also going for something a little bit more safe, like an Outrage or an Ice Spinner at that point, won't be putting your Fluttermane in that position to where it's actually so dangerous on that next turn of battle. So you also got to be thinking about that if you're Eric too, because you're not guaranteed to be finding yourself in that same Sucker Punch Thunderclap mind game in that next game.
Yeah, I feel like there's fans of a certain Geo video everywhere who really enjoyed the crazy Dragonite Earthquaking, but it's not the most consistent way to win a game, right? And yeah, I agree with you. I think if I'm Miles, I'm a little bit back to the drawing board myself, where it was 2 different turns where he had to make pretty crazy reads, give himself in a position to not even just win that game, but to be in it at all, right? I think if either of those turns go awry, it's just over. Yeah. And I think kind of just relying on being able to make that many hard reads correctly without a single error to win a set, it's a tough way to be, right? And I guess the team like this, I'm gonna guess he got here by making quite a great deal of reads correctly. But the deeper you get in the tournament, the harder it is just to kind of outthink people.
Well, these two players are definitely pretty deep in the tournament and at the 5-0 record heading into Game 3. Only one of themselves is going to put themselves at the 6-0 and only one game away from making their way in today. To sound the alarms, we're heading into it. Dragonite Fluttermane once again, but Eric the one forced to pivot this time. Chien-Pao is going to be leading it off.
All right, so Chien-Pao out here. It seems like most of the Pokemon that Miles has selected so far kind of struggle in that matchup, so I kind of like that. But once again, we have Fluttermane facing down a couple of Pokemon where it's looking pretty threatening.
That's the thing, right? And the Fluttermane, too, at this point, a spread Dazzling Gleam. You'll still be breaking the sash on that Chien-Pao, dealing a significant amount of damage, and the Ogerpon can't follow me away. The Dragonite, too, I mean, it can still be threatening quite a decent amount. You could be even just getting around that follow me with the Ogerpon if you want to be going for the Earthquake yet again and put your Fluttermane in that precarious situation. So it's definitely one of those things you have to be really careful about, because you could really easily lose that Chien-Pao on the first turn.
Yeah, I mean, this whole turn is pretty scary too, right? I mean, you'd love to just like double protect here maybe and see what Dragonite's locking into, but then what, right? Where you just aren't the safe switches to pull that off, where both sides probably going to have to make a read here.
Terrestrialization, get yourself into that normal type, and of course being out of the Dragon Flying type for an Ice Spinner, so wise here. You learn from the first match. You're not letting yourself have any weaknesses here. Chien-Pao, though, protect on this turnaround, and hey, as you called, it will be that double protect, but then where now? You see the Terrestrialization. I feel like it was pretty telegraphed at that point. You see the Fluttermane, what it wants to be going for, but what do you do from this point on?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a fun trade of an next turn here. I guess we'll see what Dragonite locks into. It is Outrage, so, in some ways, the most difficult move to deal with here. I think Eric's probably happy to see it isn't Extreme Speed, but puts kind of a strange spot where, you can't anticipate what target Dragonite is going to attack because Miles doesn't know either.
And at this point, too, assuming that Eric did not bring the Fluttermane as he has in any of the matches, we don't actually have a resist for that Outrage. I do think it was funny that it was targeted into the Spiky Shield slot, so you will be taking a little bit of damage. But beyond that, it is stuck. So means a couple of things. You do have an opportunity to be firing off an attack into the Dragonite before it does anything at this point, which I do think is going to be nice. Dazzling Gleam, of course, bringing Chien-Pao, actually not even quite 2 sash. It will be taking that 3 HP, but Dragonite also notably going to be hanging off. An Ivy Cudgel targeted into the Fluttermane. It'll be a KO there, but now this Dragonite does have an opportunity to attack.
Yeah, it's going to pick up something here, but really close trades here. It's going to be the Chien-Pao. Those 3 hit points not going to do any better for it than 1 would have. And Ogerpon and Dragonite, the only survivors of a very challenging turn.
Hey, honestly, I don't mind getting the Chien-Pao out of the way, though, considering that the Sucker Punch that it could be pressuring, as well as something like that Ice Spinner, I think it's one of those really dangerous Pokemon. But we are trading one priority threat for another with that Raging Bolt hitting the field. And the Dragonite is so low at this point. No speed over on the other end can help it, and locked into that Outrage, I mean, Dragonite kind of doesn't look great at this point.
Yeah, unlike locking in any other move, right? Dragonite's going to do its thing, so it's sort of unavoidably just bait to Thunderclap here if that's what Eric wants. And I guess I think the return damage is so high, he sort of has no choice, right? I don't know how you don't pick that up, which I assume then means a free tailwind for Tornadoes. I think we've seen previously that Ivy Cudgel without a crit isn't quite enough, and a Terrestrialization on Eric's side going to perhaps change the math on this a little bit.
That's what you can hope for, is that the math be math, and you'll be able to do a little bit more. Terrestrialization from the Wellspring Ogerpon is going to be coming out. Of course, that special defense boost from that Embody aspect is going to be rising. Tailwind, so whatever the final Pokemon is, will be able to have the speed on its side, but that's not going to matter against the priority. Thunderclap just had to do the littlest amount, and will clap the Dragonite right back to its Pokeball.
Yeah, I mean, wound up being kind of a rough game for Outrage there, where Dragonite does a grand total of 3 damage on its way down.
It did more than it did in that first game, but yeah, that was definitely a tough spot. No crit coming out, so the Tornadoes is going to be surviving another turn here, and now we'll be able to see the final Pokemon, Walking Wake. Now, the Terrestrialization has been spent here in the Walking Wake. We'll have to see. This is the opportunity to show us something that this Pokemon can offer, why it maybe deserves to be on at least a talking level with its buddies Raging Bolt and Gouging Fire.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a serious comeback. I mean, I assume like a Sunny Day Draco Meteor would probably pick up Raging Bolt, but I mean, that's still a long way to go with an unrevealed Pokemon in the back, and Tornado's kind of already on its last legs.
Well, that's exactly it. So, and as soon as you use that Draco Meteor, your special attack is going to be diminished for the rest of the game as well. So you can try and piece something together here since you do have that speed, but as much as I have my fingers crossed the Walking Way could show up big here, it definitely is not in a great position up next to what it's up against. The Tornadus will be protecting past this turn, so not looking to have that Pokemon go down this time around, but the Follow Me from the Wellspring Ogerpon. We'll have to see how much damage this Draco Meteor can do without the Sun. It already has been damaged a little bit, but without that Photosynthesis boost, it's not going to be enough damage.
Oh, and the problem, too, with Raging Bolt still being in the field. I know it's going to be a Draco Meteor, by the way, so why bother with Snarl? Just pick up the knockout. Easy.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about mitigating the damage on the opposing end if they're KO'd and just completely